Hi, this is Richard Byrne at freetech4teachers.com. In this video, we're going to take a look at how you can create a multiple part Google form. I've had a couple people ask me, is there a way to set up a Google form where students can stop in the middle and then go back and finish it later? And there really isn't. So what I do instead is I'll set up a multiple part form so that kids can go through the first 5 or 10 questions and then stop if they need to, and then proceed to the next part later. And here's how I do that. So let's go ahead and create a new Google form. And I'm currently using the older version of Google Forms. There is a new version out there, but I have not made that transition yet. And I know a lot of schools haven't made that transition yet either. So we're using the old version. Let's say, we'll just call this one part 1 of 2-part test. And I'll set this up like I normally would set it up, and I'll put in student name. I'm going to make that a single line of text. Up here I'll put this as a sample. Let's add my first question. All right, so I'll add a multiple choice question. Who was the first president of the United States? I'll put in my answer choices. So Washington, Lincoln, Jefferson, Adams. And because I want to switch it up, I'm just going to drag that answer choice down and move that one up. There. So let's just call this one part 1 for now. So let's go ahead and view that live form. And there's a link to it, and we see we have part 1. Now what I'm going to do is I'm now going to create another form, and down here in your response has been recorded, I'll put in the link to do part 2. So here's what I'm going to do now. Let's go and create another form. And we'll call this part 2 of 2-part test. And because it is technically a separate form, we're going to put in the question for name again. Make that single line of text. And I'll put another question in here. Multiple choice. What is the tallest mountain in the world? Let's say Everest, K2, Denali, Washington. And again, I'll drag my answer choices around. Good. So now let's go ahead and look at this live form. All right, so here's part 2 of the 2-part test. I want to put that link now back into part 1. So here in my confirmation page, I'm going to write in something like, thank you for completing part 1. To start on part 2, click the link below. And I'll put in the link. So now let's save that and view that new live form. And so now we have name, we'll fill this in, I'll be Max. All right, it's going to answer Washington and submit it. And now he has a link here that takes him to part 2 of the test. Again, I'll put in his name as Max, and he'll answer correctly. Now, there's one last thing you might want to do, depending on your style of organization, and that is for part 2 of the 2-part test, you might want to choose a response destination. So we'll go in and we'll change our response destination. Right, so we'll go change response destination. And I'm going to say I'll put a new sheet in an existing spreadsheet. And my existing spreadsheet will be part 1 of 2-part test. And so what that'll do is when a student completes part 2 of the 2-part test, the answers will appear in the same spreadsheet as when they answered part 1 of the 2-part test. It just makes it a little bit easier for me. So here we go. We'll answer it again. Just for the sake of demonstration, Max will answer incorrectly. Now those answers are going to appear in the response sheet for the part 1. So there's part 1 of the 2-part test, and there's my response sheet. And you can see there's Max, and down at the bottom we have form responses 1 over here. So we have form responses 2, form responses 1, and we only see one set of answers because Max only did part 1 once. Now we have form responses 2. So it just makes it a little bit easier to keep track of the responses coming in that way. So that's how you can create a multiple part test in Google Forms. It's not the most elegant solution, but it is a solution that allows you to break up your test into multiple sections so that kids can work on one section at a time, take a break, and then come back and work on the next section of the test. And for more tips and tricks like this, please check out freetech4teachers.com.